The deep black of space rippled with an impossible density of starships as the Zortak Confederation's invasion fleet materialized at the edge of the solar system. Thousands of vessels stretched across astronomical distances, their sleek metallic hulls gleaming with technologies that had conquered dozens of planetary civilizations over millennia. Each ship represented centuries of technological advancement, weapon systems that could reduce entire continents to molten slag in moments, and quantum disruption cannons capable of unraveling molecular bonds with surgical precision. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of the flagship Dominion's grasp, his 4 tentacular appendages wrapped around holographic displays that showed intricate battle formations. Generations of Zortak military strategists had meticulously planned this invasion, studying human transmissions and satellite data for decades. Their intelligence suggested a fractured, primitive species barely capable of maintaining orbital infrastructure, let alone mounting a meaningful defense. The long-range sensors began scanning Earth's defensive perimeter, compiling initial reconnaissance data. Krell expected minimal resistance, perhaps a few rudimentary defense platforms, some outdated missile systems, and a laughably small collection of space-capable vehicles. The Zortak had subjugated civilizations far more advanced than these humans, and this would be nothing more than a routine planetary acquisition. "Preliminary scans complete," announced Tactical Coordinator Vexna, her exoskeletal fingers dancing across luminescent control interfaces. "Detecting multiple orbital defense platforms, unknown configuration. Recommend initial electromagnetic pulse to disable potential resistance." Krell's membranous eyes narrowed, studying the sensor readings. Something felt unusual. The orbital infrastructure didn't match their previous intelligence. The platforms seemed more complex than expected, with geometries that suggested advanced computational integration. Quantum entanglement signatures flickered at the edges of their scanning range, technology that shouldn't exist according to their comprehensive galactic database. "Enhance Quadrant 7 Delta," Krell commanded, a note of curiosity breaking through his usual clinical demeanor. The holographic displays zoomed, revealing a network of orbital platforms that defied simple categorization. They weren't just defensive structures. They appeared to be adaptive systems with intricate energy management capabilities. The communication protocols were prepared. A standard invasion sequence involved 3 primary steps: initial reconnaissance, psychological intimidation, and forced capitulation. Krell had personally overseen hundreds of planetary conquests. Each followed a predictable pattern of technological overwhelming and swift submission. Vexna's next report carried an unexpected tremor. "Admiral, detecting multiple energy signatures that do not correspond to known technological frameworks. These platforms, they're not just receiving our scans. They appear to be actively analyzing our fleet's quantum signatures." This was unprecedented. Most civilizations simply attempted to hide or resist. These humans seemed to be studying the invasion fleet with an analytical precision that suggested something far more dangerous than simple military preparedness. Krell activated the standard communication channel, his translator converting the complex Zortak language into a simplified communication matrix designed to induce maximum psychological pressure. The message was both a demand and a proclamation of inevitable conquest. "Attention planetary governance of designation Earth," the transmission began. "Your technological infrastructure has been comprehensively analyzed. Resistance is mathematically improbable. Prepare for immediate integration into the Zortak Confederation. Survival is contingent upon complete and immediate surrender." The message hung in the quantum communication channels, waiting for a response that would, in any previous invasion, be a trembling acknowledgement of defeat. But something was different about this moment. The orbital platforms continued their quiet, precise scanning. No panic, no frantic communications, just a cold, calculating presence that seemed to be measuring, understanding, preparing. For the first time in 3 centuries of galactic conquest, Admiral Krell felt something remarkably close to uncertainty. The humans were not behaving according to any known invasion protocol. The unified Global Defense Command Center beneath the Atacama Desert hummed with an intensity that belied humanity's calm exterior. Admiral Lilina Rodriguez stood at the central holographic display, her fingers tracing complex battle formations that represented decades of technological innovation and strategic preparation. Behind her, a diverse team of military strategists, quantum physicists, and AI specialists worked in perfect synchronization. Earth's response to the alien invasion had been decades in the making, a carefully orchestrated defense strategy that emerged from humanity's most significant evolutionary trait, the ability to anticipate and adapt. The orbital defense network was far more than a simple collection of weapons platforms. Each station was a living, breathing system of computational intelligence, quantum adaptive armor, and weaponry that pushed the boundaries of known physical limitations. Graviton pulse cannons are charged and calibrated, reported Dr. Marcus Chen, the lead weapons systems designer. His fingers danced across holographic interfaces, running final system checks. The weapons were a marvel of human ingenuity, devices that could manipulate gravitational fields with surgical precision, capable of crushing entire sections of enemy fleets or creating localized space-time distortions. The defense platforms represented a quantum leap in military technology. Unlike traditional weapon systems, these were living networks of artificial intelligence and adaptive quantum computing. Each platform could communicate instantaneously, sharing tactical information faster than any biological intelligence could process. They were not just weapons. They were a collective intelligence dedicated to planetary defense. Rodriguez studied the incoming Zortak transmission with a Predator's calculation. The alien demand for surrender was almost laughable. Humanity had spent the last half-century preparing for this exact moment, transforming global conflicts into a unified purpose of survival and technological advancement. "Activate secondary quantum encryption," she commanded. The communication systems began to pulse with layers of encryption that would make the Zortak transmission look like primitive smoke signals. It wasn't just about blocking communication. It was about sending a message of technological superiority. In orbit, the defense platforms began to shift. Their external appearance was deceptive. What looked like simple metallic structures concealed adaptive metamaterials that could reconfigure themselves instantaneously. Quantum-locked armor plating could redistribute energy from incoming attacks, turning destructive force into usable power. Plasma shields flickered with possibilities that defied the Zortak's understanding of defensive technology. Dr. Samira Patel, the chief quantum systems analyst, leaned in close to Rodriguez. "The alien fleet's scanning frequencies are completely predictable," she said with a hint of professional contempt. "Our adaptive systems are already developing counter-signatures that will make their targeting systems essentially useless." The global defense network was more than a military system. It was the culmination of humanity's greatest strength. Every major technological breakthrough of the past 50 years had been secretly channeled into this moment. Climate change solutions had produced adaptive material technologies. Space exploration had generated unprecedented understanding of quantum mechanics. Competing nations had been quietly unified under a single purpose, preparing for the possibility of extraterrestrial threat. Rodriguez activated the Global Defense Response Protocol. Thousands of satellites and orbital platforms began to align, their systems integrating into a single breathtaking network of defensive and offensive capabilities. Quantum-entangled communication systems allowed instantaneous coordination that would appear almost telepathic to an outside observer. "Weapons hot," she said quietly. The words were almost a whisper, but they resonated through every system of Earth's defense network. The Zortak invasion fleet hung in space, waiting for the expected trembling response of a primitive civilization. Instead, they would receive something entirely unexpected. A demonstration of technological capability that would redefine their understanding of human potential. Each defense platform began to pulse with an energy that suggested something far more dangerous than simple military preparedness. These were not just weapons. They were a statement, Humanity was not just going to defend itself. It was going to demonstrate why no civilization should ever consider Earth a potential conquest. Rodriguez allowed herself the slightest hint of a smile. The real shock was about to begin. The asteroid belt erupted into a canvas of destruction that defied the Zortak's comprehension. Human warships moved with a fluidity that suggested something far beyond traditional military doctrine. Each vessel operating as both an individual unit and a collective intelligence that adapted faster than biological minds could process. Commander David Reyes guided his squadron with a precision that blurred the line between human strategy and artificial intelligence. The combat network hummed with quantum-encrypted communication, allowing instantaneous tactical adjustments that made the Zortak fleet look like lumbering relics of a bygone era. Each human ship carried an integrated AI system that could analyze and counter alien attack patterns in microseconds, a technology the Zortak had never encountered. The first wave of Zortak attack ships launched their primary assault, plasma-based energy weapons that had reduced dozens of civilizations to cosmic dust. But Earth's defensive systems were something entirely different. Quantum adaptive armor absorbed and redirected the incoming energy, transforming potentially destructive attacks into additional power for the human vessels. Swarm Formation Alpha, Rice commanded, his voice calm despite the chaos surrounding them. The human ships began to move in a pattern that defied traditional three-dimensional space combat. They weren't just fighting. They were dancing, each vessel anticipating the movements of both allies and enemies with impossible precision. On the Zortak flagship, Admiral Krell watched in mounting horror. The human ships seemed to be operating with a level of coordination that suggested something more than standard military communication. It was as if they were thinking as a single organism, each ship an extension of a larger, more complex intelligence. Tactical Coordinator Vexna's hands trembled as she processed the incoming data. Admiral, their energy dissipation rates are impossible. Our weapons are being neutralized before they can cause significant damage. The ships are adapting. The human vessels utilized a combat strategy that was equal parts mathematics, artificial intelligence, and pure human unpredictability. Where alien tactics followed rigid, predictable patterns, the human ships moved with a fluidity that seemed to break the fundamental rules of space combat. A destroyer would suddenly transform its energy signature, becoming momentarily invisible to alien targeting systems. Another would use graviton pulse technology to create localized space-time distortions, redirecting incoming fire with impossible precision. Each human ship carried multiple layers of defensive and offensive capabilities that worked in perfect harmony. Metamaterial hull plating could reconfigure itself instantaneously, dispersing energy from incoming attacks. Quantum-entangled communication systems allowed for communication faster than light, creating a network of information exchange that the Zortak could not intercept or understand. The asteroid belt became a proving ground of human technological superiority. Where the Zortak expected a straightforward battle of attrition, they encountered a nightmare of adaptive warfare. Human ships would cluster, combine defensive fields, then suddenly disperse in patterns that confused alien targeting systems. Energy weapons that should have obliterated entire squadrons were absorbed, redirected, transformed. Secondary quantum disruption protocol, Rice called out. The human ships began to emit complex energy signatures that actively interfered with the Zortak fleet's communication and targeting systems. It was more than electronic warfare. It was a complete deconstruction of the aliens' combat capabilities. Within the first hour of engagement, the Zortak lost nearly 30% of their initial invasion force. But it wasn't just the physical destruction that broke their spirit. It was the complete and total demonstration of technological superiority. The human ships weren't just defending. They were teaching a brutal lesson about the nature of technological evolution. Vexna's final report to Admiral Krell was a testament to human innovation. "Sir," she said, her voice breaking, "their technology suggests capabilities we cannot comprehend. They are not just fighting. They are learning, adapting, evolving with each millisecond of combat." The asteroid belt fell silent, filled with the debris of Zortak ships and the chilling realization that humanity was something entirely unexpected in the galaxy's mathematical equation of conquest. The communication intercepted from the Zortak fleet revealed a civilization built on rigid hierarchical structures and absolute predictability. Their entire societal and military framework depended on mathematical precision, linear thinking, and a belief in technological superiority that had gone unchallenged for millennia. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, not to be confused with the Admiral, led the Psychological Warfare Division from a nondescript research facility in the Swiss Alps. Her team comprised linguists, cognitive scientists, mathematicians, and experts in alien communication systems. They weren't just analyzing the Zortak transmissions, they were systematically dismantling the aliens' understanding of conflict. Their communication protocols are a mathematical trap, she explained to her team, highlighting complex linguistic patterns on holographic displays. They expect responses to follow a precise algorithmic sequence. We're going to break that sequence completely. The human response was anything but predictable. Earth's communication teams began transmitting signals that defied the Zortak's understanding of logical interaction. Mathematical sequences would suddenly shift, communication patterns would introduce deliberate inconsistencies, and transmission frequencies would change in ways that suggested either complete chaos or a deeper intelligence the aliens couldn't comprehend. On the Zortak flagship, communication analysts began to experience what could only be described as cognitive dissonance. The human transmissions contained layers of meaning that seemed to exist in multiple states simultaneously. Where Zortak communication was a strict binary system of information transfer, human messages appeared to be quantum-like, existing in multiple interpretative states at once. Admiral Carell watched as his communication specialists began to show signs of significant psychological stress. The rigid hierarchical structure of Zortak society meant that any deviation from expected communication protocols was seen as a fundamental threat to their entire social system. The psychological warfare went far beyond simple communication disruption. Human intelligence teams began to deliberately leak information that created maximum confusion. Partial technical specifications that seemed to suggest impossible technologies. Fragmented communication records that hinted at capabilities far beyond what the initial battle had revealed. Dr. Rodriguez's team understood a fundamental truth about intelligent species. Information is both a weapon and a psychological construct. They weren't just trying to confuse the Zortak. They were systematically destroying the aliens' confidence in their own understanding of reality. Quantum encrypted transmissions began to appear that seemed to predict Zortak military movements before they occurred. Complex mathematical sequences suggested an understanding of alien tactical thinking that should have been impossible. The Zortak leadership began to question whether the humans possessed some form of precognitive technology, or if they were simply operating on a level of strategic thinking completely incomprehensible to alien minds. They're trying to understand us through a computational lens, Dr. Rodriguez explained to her team. But humanity has never been about pure computation. We're about creativity, unpredictability, the ability to break our own rules. The psychological assault was multilayered. Human transmissions would include snippets of cultural information that the Zortak found utterly bewildering. Art, music, philosophical concepts that didn't conform to any logical framework the aliens could understand. It was a deliberate demonstration that human intelligence was fundamentally different from any technological civilization the Zortak had encountered. Communication analysts on the Zortak flagship began to show signs of what could only be described as existential breakdown. Their entire understanding of intelligent communication was being systematically dismantled. The humans weren't just resisting. They were playing a game of psychological warfare that the Zortak had no framework to comprehend. Admiral Carell realized, with a growing sense of dread, that they were facing something far more dangerous than a technologically advanced species. They were confronting a form of intelligence that didn't just think outside the box. It refused to acknowledge the box's existence in the first place. The psychological warfare had begun long before the first shot was fired. and the Zortak were losing ground with every transmission. The breakthrough came from an unexpected collaboration between military researchers, quantum physicists, and a diverse team of international scientists working in a secure research facility deep beneath the Andes Mountains. Dr. Maya Krishnamurthy, the lead researcher, had been working on a theoretical electromagnetic pulse weapon that challenged every known principle of energy manipulation. What began as a theoretical research project transformed into humanity's most devastating technological innovation. The weapon wasn't just a simple pulse generator. It was a quantum adaptive system that could simultaneously disable multiple alien ships by exploiting fundamental weaknesses in their technological infrastructure. It's not about destruction, Dr. Krishnamurthy explained to the assembled military and scientific leadership. It's about understanding and then systematically neutralizing their entire technological ecosystem. The weapon worked on principles that seemed to defy conventional physics, by creating a quantum-entangled pulse that could simultaneously exist in multiple states. It could penetrate the Zortak ship's most advanced defensive systems. Each pulse was a complex mathematical algorithm that adapted in real time, learning and evolving with each interaction. Admiral Elena Rodriguez oversaw the weapon's first full-scale deployment. The test would occur in the contested region of the asteroid belt, where the initial battles had demonstrated humanity's unexpected military capabilities. Thousands of scientists and military personnel watched with a mixture of anticipation and scientific curiosity. The first pulse was unlike anything the Zortak had ever encountered. Instead of a traditional electromagnetic disruption, it was a living network of energy that could reconfigure itself instantaneously. Where standard weapon systems would create a single point of impact, this pulse created a complex web of energy that could simultaneously interact with multiple technological systems. On the Zortak flagship, Admiral Krell watched in mounting horror as entire sections of their fleet began to go dark. It wasn't just electronic systems failing. Entire ships were becoming inert, their advanced technologies rendered completely useless by a weapon that seemed to understand their fundamental technological architecture better than they did. Dr. Krishnamurthy's team had spent years studying intercepted alien technology, reverse engineering fragments of communication systems, and developing a weapon that was more of a technological predator than a simple destructive tool. Each pulse carried with it a complex informational payload that could essentially infect alien technological systems. The scientific breakthrough represented the culmination of humanity's most significant strength, our ability to adapt, learn, and innovate at an unprecedented rate. Traditional military development took decades. Humanity had compressed centuries of technological evolution into a matter of months, driven by the existential threat of alien invasion. We're not just fighting, Dr. Krishnamurthy told her team. We're demonstrating the fundamental nature of human innovation. Every challenge is an opportunity to reimagine what's possible. The weapons deployment changed the entire strategic landscape of the conflict. Zortak ships that had seemed invincible moments before were now nothing more than massive inert objects floating in the cold vacuum of space. The pulse didn't just disable, it demonstrated a level of technological understanding that was fundamentally terrifying to the alien invaders. Communication intercepts revealed the growing panic within the Zortak fleet. Their entire military doctrine was based on technological superiority, and now they faced an enemy that could neutralize their most advanced systems with what seemed like minimal effort. Admiral Rodriguez watched the tactical displays with a calculated calm. This was more than a military victory. It was a statement about the nature of human potential. Every disabled ship was a testament to humanity's capacity for rapid innovation, our ability to turn seemingly insurmountable challenges into opportunities for breakthrough. The turning point had arrived. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was demonstrating why no civilization should ever consider Earth a potential conquest. In the cold silence of space, the disabled Zortak fleet hung like a monument to human ingenuity, a stark reminder that technological superiority is more than just advanced weaponry. It's about the capacity to understand, adapt, and ultimately transform every challenge into an opportunity for unprecedented innovation. The Zortak launched their most advanced weapons system, the Quantum Cascade Disruptor, a technological marvel that had systematically destroyed countless civilizations across the galaxy. Developed over millennia, the weapon could theoretically unravel the molecular bonds of entire planetary systems, reducing complex structures to fundamental atomic particles in milliseconds. Admiral Krell believed this would be the moment of ultimate triumph. The Quantum Cascade Disruptor represented the pinnacle of Zortak military technology, a weapon so advanced that it had never failed in over 3 centuries of galactic conquests. Its targeting systems could penetrate any known defensive technology, its energy output capable of dismantling entire planetary infrastructures. But humanity was not a typical civilization. The first Cascade Pulse launched toward Earth's primary defense network. Zortak targeting systems showed perfect lock, predictive algorithms calculating complete system destruction with mathematical certainty. Krell watched the holographic displays, expecting to see Earth's defensive systems completely obliterated. Instead, something unprecedented happened. The Quantum Cascade Pulse met Earth's defensive network and was absorbed. Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched from the Global Defense Command Center, her team of scientists and military strategists working with a precision that defied conventional understanding. The defensive systems didn't just block the attack, they began to analyze it, breaking down its quantum signature in real time. Quantum resonance adaptation is at 78%, reported Dr. Marcus Chen, his fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. We're not just defending, we're learning. The human defensive network was something entirely new in galactic warfare. Each defensive platform was more than a weapon. It was a living, learning system that could instantaneously adapt to incoming technological threats. The Quantum Cascade Pulse that should have destroyed entire continents was being systematically broken down, its energy redirected, its fundamental structure understood and neutralized. On the Zortak flagship, communication systems began to show signs of catastrophic failure. The weapon that had never failed was being studied, understood, and ultimately rendered useless by a species the aliens had considered primitive. Admiral Krell watched in mounting horror as the Quantum Cascade Disruptor's energy was not just blocked but transformed. The human defensive systems began to emit a counter-frequency that started to destabilize the Zortak weapon's quantum structures. It was as if the humans were reading the weapon's fundamental language and speaking back to it in a way that completely dismantled its operational logic. Adaptive Quantum Replication Protocol initiated, Dr. Chen announced. The human systems were now doing something truly terrifying. They were not just defending against the Zortak weapon, but learning to reproduce and potentially improve upon its fundamental technological principles. The counterattack revealed the fundamental difference between the Zortak and human approaches to technology. Where the alien civilization saw weapons as fixed systems, humans viewed technology as a living, evolving organism. Each defensive response was an opportunity for learning, for innovation, for fundamental transformation. Zortak communication channels began to show signs of complete psychological breakdown. Their most advanced weapon, a technological marvel developed over centuries, was being systematically dismantled by a species they had considered barely worthy of notice. The humans are not just defending, one Zortak tactical analyst reported, his voice trembling. They are understanding. The Quantum Cascade Pulse that should have destroyed entire continents was now being used to power additional defensive systems. Humanity was turning the most advanced weapon in the galaxy into nothing more than an additional energy source. Admiral Rodriguez watched the tactical displays with a calm that bordered on contempt. This was more than a military engagement. It was a demonstration of humanity's fundamental approach to challenges. Every incoming threat was an opportunity for understanding, for growth, for transformation. In the cold vacuum of space, the Zortak fleet began to realize a terrifying truth. They were no longer the predators. They had become the subjects of the most comprehensive technological study in galactic history. Humanity was not just surviving. It was evolving. The moment of surrender was unlike any diplomatic encounter in galactic history. Admiral Krell stood before the communication systems of the Zortak flagship, his tentacular appendages trembling with a mixture of shame and incomprehension. The broadcast would be transmitted across the entire Zortak Confederation, a moment that would redefine their understanding of technological superiority. "Attention, Earth governing authorities," Krell began, his voice carrying the weight of millennia of collective alien pride. "The Zortak Confederation hereby submits to complete and unconditional surrender." The words felt foreign, impossible. No Zortak military commander had ever spoken such a statement in the 3 centuries of their galactic conquests. Each syllable was a knife cutting through the fabric of their civilization's most fundamental beliefs. Admiral Elena Rodriguez received the transmission with a calculated calm that seemed to embody the entire human response to the invasion. The Global Defense Command Center was a symphony of technological precision, screens displaying tactical information, quantum communication networks humming with activity, a collective human intelligence that had transformed an attempted invasion into a comprehensive demonstration of technological supremacy. The surrender terms were brutal in their simplicity. The Zortak fleet would be completely disarmed. All military technologies would be cataloged, studied, and ultimately controlled by human research teams. Navigation systems would be restricted, preventing any potential future aggressive movements. The alien civilization would be placed under a comprehensive technological quarantine that would last generations. Dr. Maya Krishnamurthy led the team responsible for processing the alien technological archive. What the Zortak had considered their most advanced systems were now nothing more than research specimens, objects to be studied, understood, and ultimately improved upon by human scientists. "They didn't just bring us their weapons," she explained to her research team. "They brought us a comprehensive blueprint of their entire technological framework. Every system they considered advanced is now our starting point for innovation." The psychological impact on the Zortak civilization was total and complete. Their entire societal structure was built on the concept of technological superiority. Now they were being forced to acknowledge that a civilization they had considered beneath notice had not only defeated them, but had done so with a level of innovative capacity that made their own technologies look primitive. Communication intercepts revealed the growing existential crisis within the Zortak leadership. Their quantum communication networks were filled with transmissions that suggested a complete breakdown of their collective understanding. How could a species they had deemed so technologically inferior have defeated them so comprehensively? Admiral Krell was personally required to deliver a series of detailed reports explaining the complete failure of the invasion. Each transmission was a systematic deconstruction of Zortak military doctrine, revealing every weakness that humanity had so effectively exploited. It was more than a military report. It was a comprehensive autopsy of an entire civilization's approach to technological warfare. The human response was calculated and precise. Earth didn't seek to destroy the Zortak. They sought to understand them completely. Research teams began comprehensive studies of alien technologies, turning the entire invasion into the most significant technological research opportunity in human history. Global communication networks broadcast the surrender to every corner of human civilization. It wasn't a moment of celebration, but of cold, calculated understanding. Humanity had not just defended itself, it had demonstrated a fundamental truth about technological innovation. "We don't conquer," Admiral Rodriguez stated during the official surrender proceedings. "We understand. We adapt. We evolve." The Zortak fleet, reduced to less than 40% of its original strength, became a living museum of failed technological assumptions. Each disabled ship was a testament to human innovation, a reminder that true technological superiority is not about destructive potential, but about the capacity to learn, adapt, and transform. As the surrender transmission concluded, the galaxy watched. Other civilizations that had long feared the Zortak now realized that a new power had emerged, a species that didn't just fight wars, but fundamentally reimagined the nature of technological conflict. Humanity had not just survived an invasion. It had redefined the very concept of technological warfare. The transformation of human civilization in the wake of the Zortak invasion was nothing short of revolutionary. What had begun as a potential extinction-level threat became the catalyst for humanity's most significant technological and societal leap forward. The global research initiative that emerged from the conflict brought together the brightest minds from every corner of the planet. Universities, research centers, and scientific institutions that had previously competed now worked in unprecedented collaboration. The alien technologies recovered from the invasion became the foundation of a new era of human innovation. Dr. Marcus Chen led the first comprehensive analysis of Zortak technological archives. What they discovered was far more than simple weapon systems or communication technologies. Each alien artifact was a window into an entirely different approach to understanding the universe, an approach that human scientists could now study, deconstruct, and ultimately improve upon. This isn't just about reverse engineering, Chen explained during a global broadcast. This is about understanding fundamentally different ways of perceiving technological possibility. The geopolitical landscape transformed overnight. The unified response to the alien invasion had broken down centuries of human conflict. Nations that had been bitter enemies now worked together with a common purpose. The global defense network that had repelled the Zortak became the foundation of a new international scientific and technological cooperation. Economic systems were revolutionized. The technologies developed during the conflict created entire new industries: quantum computing, adaptive materials, energy manipulation. These were no longer theoretical concepts but practical technologies that would reshape human civilization. Military academies around the world began to teach a new doctrine of technological warfare. The lessons learned from the Zortak invasion weren't about weapons or destructive potential. They were about adaptability, innovation, and the ability to transform challenges into opportunities. Admiral Elena Rodriguez was appointed to lead the newly formed Interstellar Defense and Research Council. Her mandate was clear: ensure that humanity would never again be caught unprepared for potential extraterrestrial threats. But more importantly, prepare humanity to become a true galactic civilization. The recovered Zortak ships became living museums of technological possibility. Research centers were established around the world, each dedicated to studying different aspects of the alien technologies. What had been an invasion fleet was now the greatest research opportunity in human history. Diplomatic channels opened with other alien civilizations that had long been terrorized by the Zortak. These species, which had existed in constant fear, now saw humanity as a potential liberator. The galactic political landscape was fundamentally transformed. "We're not conquerors," Rodriguez would often say in her speeches. "We're explorers. We're learners. We transform." The quantum communication technologies recovered from the Zortak fleet became the foundation of a new era of human communication. Instantaneous information transfer, adaptive communication systems, quantum entanglement networks. Technologies that had seemed like science fiction became practical realities. Dr. Maya Krishnamurthy's research teams began developing technologies that would have been unimaginable before the invasion. Adaptive medical systems that could reconfigure themselves to treat previously incurable diseases, energy generation technologies that could provide clean, unlimited power, quantum computing systems that could solve complex mathematical problems that had stumped human researchers for generations. The psychological impact was equally profound. Humanity's collective consciousness had been transformed. The invasion had revealed a fundamental truth about human potential: our ability to adapt, to learn, to grow beyond our perceived limitations. Schools began to teach a new curriculum that emphasized innovation, adaptability, and collaborative problem-solving. The invasion was no longer taught as a military victory, but as a pivotal moment in human evolution. Within a decade, human technological capabilities had advanced more rapidly than in the previous century. The Zortak invasion, intended to be an act of conquest, had become the greatest catalyst for human progress in our species' history. As human research vessels began to explore beyond the solar system, other galactic civilizations watched with a mixture of fear and fascination. The species that had been considered a potential conquest had transformed into something entirely unexpected. A civilization of innovators, of learners, of transformative thinkers. Humanity stood triumphant, not through destructive potential, but through the most powerful force in the universe, the capacity to understand, to adapt, to grow. The galaxy would never be the same.